Many nations use special war flags instead of their traditional flags when they are engaged in conflict.
These are different versions of the national flag, and many times these differences are really hard to notice at first glance.
In fact, if I were to show you many war flags, you would probably confuse them with the traditional flags of their respective countries. There are several examples of these flags, like the war flag of Vietnam, whose only difference from its respective national flag is that it says in Vietnamese, "Determined to win."
Or like the war flag of the Philippines, which is literally the same as the traditional flag, only turned upside down, giving some kind of metaphorical meaning about the state of the nation during a conflict.
Or how about the Italian war flag, which only changes shape to a square shape compared to the normal one?
Also, in many other cases, war flags are completely different from the normal ones.
There are many examples of these war flags.
For example, the one I probably used in the thumbnail, the Chinese war flag, is quite different from its national flag.
This war flag is used by the National Liberation Army.
And if you're wondering what the symbols on the war flag mean, they mean 1/8 or August 1st, the day of the Nechan Uprising,
and the start of the Chinese Civil War.
Japan also has a quite curious war flag, being very different from its national flag, even being almost the same as the flag of the Japanese Empire that fell in 1945, being corresponding to the Grand Forces of the Japan Self-Defense Forces.
And what about Canada? Its war flag is used by its armed forces.
And they seem to copy a bit the design of the English colonial flags, distinctively using the flag in the upper left with the shield of their armed forces.
Or also Portugal, being a war flag similar to its original flag but in the same way quite different.
But probably a great example of a war flag is the one used in the famous photograph raising the flag on Iwo Jima.
this being one of the most important photographs in the history of mankind.
It is unknown what the first war flag was or when they exactly started to be used.
But the use of flags as signals on the battlefield seems to arise in Asia during the Iron Age around the year 700 before Christ.
Possibly in China or India in antiquity, of the larger armies of tens of thousands of men, needed them to identify which group or division of the army each soldier belonged to.
The use of war flags was common in the Middle Ages.
The so-called standards were used, which were flags with a fairly simple design that were used in combat or to represent families.
And they evolved alongside heraldry during the Middle Ages.
The standards were carried as a symbolic sign of each noble house, whether they were kings or noble families.
In the modern age, with the suffering of nations and empires,
with huge armies, with several branches, the war flags that we know for the use of troops on land emerged.
War flags cannot be confused with the flags used on military ships. Although often they have the same design, they are not the same. On warships, we can find three different types of flags. The battle flag,
the bow flag, and finally the most important of all, the stern flag. The battle flag is basically a huge flag that is used only when the ship is about to enter combat or also in ceremonial acts.
It is so large because it had to be of a sufficient size to be visible in the thick smoke caused by the cannons of before the 19th century.
It generally has the same design as the national flag. For example, here we have the United States ship McFarland using its corresponding US battle flag.
The battle flag is kept on board with the hope of not having to use it for anything other than solemn occasions, but obviously never in combat. If focusing on a war action, the battle flag is a very important symbol for the ship's crew, and its safeguard boosts the crew's morale. When the ship surrenders, the flag is lowered and the enemy usually takes it as a trophy.
There are famous cases like that of the German battleship Bismarck,
in which the flag was never taken, the ship sinking with the flag still raised.
The second flag that we can find on ships is the bow flag. This is also called the cutwater flag, bowsprit or little turret.
And in English, it is called a jack and has exclusively ceremonial use. It is raised at the bow of the ships, that is, at the front of the boats.
And although it may seem unimportant, in fact, most nations have a whole set of regulations for its use.
Unlike the battle flag, the test flag has its own design, which is often different from the war flag.
And the stern flag, as you can see on the screen.
There are many interesting designs like the United States of America design, which is the star as part of their national flag.
Or like the old German flags, all with their very interesting symbol, or there is the Mexican flag having its national flag colors diagonally and other naval symbols.
The Spanish Navy's design is very interesting.
which basically are the four main quarters of the coat of arms of Spain and represent the ancient kingdoms of Spain, Castile, Leon, Aragon, and Navarre. In a position opposite to the bow flag is the stern flag, which is in fact probably the most important flag on ships.
It is also called the national or naval ensign in English, and this is hoisted at the stern of the ships, that is, at the rear of them.
Its purpose is to indicate the nationality of the ship.
In many nations, it has civilian and military versions to distinguish between them.
This is very important because, for example, in nations like England or Italy, where there are many civilian ships, these flags play a very important role in
identifying them.
These are the three flags that we can find on ships.
Basically, war flags are not the same as bow or stern flags, and they are certainly not the same as the battle flag.
The battle, bow, and stern flag is for use on ships, and the war flag is for use by armies on land.
However, even though they are not the same, many times nations use the same design of their war flag as a stern or bow flag, as is the case with Finland, which uses its war flag as a stern flag, and I personally really like the design.
Sweden also uses the same war flag as a stern flag, having points at the end like the design of Finland.
Of course, many other Latin American nations also have their war flags, such as Peru, which uses its war flag as a bow and stern flag.
Or like Bolivia, which uses its war flag for its entire armed force, even for its navy.
Which is curious, since Bolivia has no access to the sea and yet it has a navy, and it's because its navy is to guard its bodies of water that are within the national territory.
Venezuela and Colombia also have their war flags, and of course, many other Latin American nations have them too.
War flags and naval use flags, despite going so unnoticed, are very interesting, and each of them has a lot of history and symbolism behind it.
Most people are unaware of their existence. This channel aims to inform you about such curious things. Soldiers, remember this is Guns Club. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Goodbye.